Thanks, Steve. Questions from the audience? Somebody must have provoked somebody to ask a question, so I'll open it up. Well, I'll ask the first question, I guess, of Ian. And, to maybe put your position kind of too pithily, you might put it in this way: there's nothing wrong with mass immigration that ending welfare wouldn't fix. And you can take that position, I suppose. I think logically it could make sense. The problem is we've conducted a vast social experiment starting in the 90s, actually from long before that even, in trying to wall off lower skilled immigrants from welfare. And it's failed repeatedly, over and over again, because, my sense is that a modern society like ours is not going to go to the lengths that would be necessary in walling off newcomers from the welfare system that would make something like that position workable. And so my question is, since we've tried to keep immigrants from accessing welfare and failed over and over and over again, is it really responsible fiscally or in any other way to keep taking in 1 million people a year until we somehow fix what you would conceive of as a problem that immigrants are able to access welfare? In other words, until we fix that, isn't it just prudent to reduce intakes until we fix what you would address as the problem of immigrant access to welfare?
I think that's a very interesting question. I think, as I try to make clear, that there is a general problem with access to welfare that goes far beyond immigrant status, and I think that's the thing that we need to fix. If there is a possibility of doing a quick fix on immigrant welfare along the lines that Julian Simon described, then I think it's worth that's worth trying. That's a quick fix that you can do that perhaps will have some benefits when it comes to welfare policy. You may well be right that attempts to do the quick fix have failed before, but I think that just generally shows that there is a wider problem with welfare than just immigration. We tried to get large numbers of people off welfare in the 90s, but as Steve's data show, there are some states where most native households, are still using welfare. That's probably a cultural issue. If immigrants are buying into that culture, then that's a significant problem, and that's one of the areas where libertarians tend to believe that there is an argument for restricting immigration, is if there is going to be a cultural shift as a result of immigration that affects the free enterprise system. And I think that is something we have to look at. Is there something going on that is causing problems for our free enterprise system? I happen to think that what's causing the most problems for the free enterprise system is actually in the native-born population as much as it is in immigrants. But again, perhaps it can be part of a quick fix.
Well, if I could follow up on that, though, I guess the question is, and then let's assume that you think that these programs tend to be very popular, things like WIC, right? The Women, Infants, and Children Nutrition Program. This is for low-income women who are pregnant or a person who's recently had a child, formula and other nutritional supplements. Now, is it your sense, that program's used very heavily by immigrants. I just say the name of that program and I think I've won the debate. Women, Infants, and Children. Do you imagine in the America that we live in that that's a program where we're going to restrict immigrant access to? One out of every 4 children born in the United States is born to an immigrant woman right now, and of low-income children, it's got to be closer to a third. So, in other words, 1 out of every 3 low-income children, children born to a low-income woman, is born to an immigrant woman. Immigration has 2 effects. It dramatically increases the number of people who might need that program, assuming you think it's a good program, but I'm not arguing that you do. But also, that it just becomes impractical to talk about not. Can you imagine trying to deny free school lunch or health care? See, the cash programs, I think you can make that case and kind of did it. But I think that that argument has gone as far as it's going to go. We're not going to be restricting WIC. Do you think we would, really, in the United States?
Well, Paul Ryan is about to present a budget proposal at the AEI in half an hour or so, which attempts to reform Medicare, so to take $4 trillion off the cost of it. I think that what we need is more big thinking like that.
Yeah.
So rather than looking at each individual tiny little program and arguing, well, you can't take that away, you can't take that away. I think we need to be looking at big picture reform of all these programs. And when it comes to the big picture reform, immigration is a very, very small part of that.
Mr. Murray, the very end of your remarks, you talked about the possibility of adjusting educational criteria for the issuance of green cards. I'd like to know if you favor that. And also, very briefly, toward the end of your remarks, you talked about adjusting some agricultural program by some educational standard. I'm not familiar with that. Could you talk about that as well?
Well, to deal with the agricultural program first, we're still living with a lot of Depression-era policies that have had a significant effect on us ever since they were brought in as part of the New Deal. A very interesting example of that is the Raise and Price Stability Program. It has a formal name, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But what this does is, in an effort to bring price stability to the raisin harvest, because in the 1930s, with all the climatic issues that were going on then, there was significant volatility in the raisin price, and as a result, raisin farmers were going out of business one year and experiencing a glut the next, and going out of business because they had too much. FDR and his people brought in a program whereby the government buys, still to this day, between 1/3 and 1/2 of all the raisins grown in the United States. And it distributes some of those to children as part of a school nutrition scheme. Some of them it just throws away. We are growing far too many raisins in the United States to meet market demand. Now, it just so happens that raisin harvesting is probably the single most labor-intensive program, the agricultural product there is. So raisin harvesters in California are using huge numbers of undocumented immigrants to come in and pick these raisins, which are then simply thrown away. If we got rid of that Depression-era program and used free market methods to stabilize the price, the unique climatic factors of the 1930s aren't an issue anymore, then we will deregulate the industry, take a burden off raisin farmers, open up raisin farming to competition, and at the same time reduce undocumented immigration. Sorry? Unfortunately, I can't remember the figures off the top of my head. If you give me your contact details, I can get those to you.
Okay, and then a question about education.
Yes. Now, as I was saying, those raisin harvesters that are coming in are normally right at the lowest end of the educational spectrum. So that sort of reform of those programs, would significantly reduce the lower educated people who, as Steve identifies, are the main takers of welfare. When it comes to higher educated, trying to put a premium on higher education, countries all over the world attempt this. A lot of countries, Canada, even my own UK at one point, have had point systems whereby to qualify for, I wouldn't say automatic, but to qualify for easier access to the country, you got more points if you had an advanced degree. I'm not sure of the success of those programs. I need to look into that a bit more. But Julian Simon, when he reviewed the programs from the 90s, thought that some of them showed promise and some of them had significant problems. I think it'd be very worthwhile for somebody to do a study of how those programs have panned out since the 90s, to identify whether it's an option that we could successfully pursue in the United States.